Hello, Mike. We are recording now.
Great. Thanks for having me, Grant. It's
Yeah,
nice
I'm
to be here.
excited to chat. Obviously, in the broader AI space, implications on particular industries have seen more clear cut than others, and I think in the area of the legal profession, it's obviously a very um, high cost profession historically, and uses a lot of language, and so this is a really interesting category for us to dig deep into, and you guys are doing some really interesting stuff in this space. So excited to learn more about Paxton AI. Obviously, you're one of the co-founders of the company. And so to kick us off, I'd love to just hear a bit more about your background, the background of your co-founder, kind of the genesis story, like what led you to starting Paxton AI in the first place.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, great to be here. Um, so I'm Mike. I'm the CTO and co-founder of Paxton AI. I guess my journey is a little unique. I initially thought that I wanted to be a lawyer when I was in college before going into the engineering and technical side of things. So I actually uh, held a number of positions before going into consulting in regulatory affairs. So I actually worked in policy at the Federal Reserve while the Dodd-Frank Wall Street Reform Act was being passed, which required me to read a 900-page bill every week and see what changed and what the potential implications of those changes were. And thinking back on it, I'm like, man, it would have been great to have ChatGPT for that. Um, so hopefully, no one has to go through that sort of experience again moving forward. But after the Fed, I then went on to McKinsey and Company, where I worked in the technology practice, and that's actually where my co-founder and I met and became friends and worked together. We were actually in the same orientation program, so we met pretty early on at our time there. Uh, but I did my 2.5 years at McKinsey and then went into the world of technology startups. Tanguy, my co-founder and CEO, he also went into the world of tech, but he became a VC investor. So he was a partner at two large VC funds, Mayfield Fund and Formation 8, before we connected again. Uh, this is going on almost 15 years now. Um, so I became more of an operator. So I went to a company called RPX, which is a legal tech company focused on the intellectual property space. We were a Kleiner Perkins backed startup, and I worked in data science for them using NLP and statistical techniques to identify patents that might be relevant to RPX's client base. After RPX, I then joined up with a few other ex McKinsey guys, and we started a company called Zesty AI, where I was the head of AI and the first AI engineer there. And what Zesty did was apply AI to the problem of underwriting and pricing for the U.S. property insurance industry. So we were actually the first AI model approved by the California Department of Insurance for use in underwriting and pricing, and so I had to work very closely with regulators there and regulators in 10 other states to get these models approved. And we worked with some of the largest insurance companies in the US, including Allstate, Berkshire Hathaway, AAA, MetLife, and Farmers. Um, and given that insurance is a heavily regulated space, it's a lot like legal. There's a lot of text-heavy documents to deal with, a lot of regulations and rules that make sure you have to follow. And uh, this is a bit of the genesis for Paxton, the company that I started with Tanguy, um, having to deal with regulators and understand the rules and submit responses to them. It's a lot of manual, mind-numbing work,
Mhm.
and it's important work. It affects a large segment of the economy. But man, it would have been great to have generative AI back when we were going through all those approvals.
Yep.
So Tongi and I were chatting and trying to figure out what application areas would be good to tackle with this tech. And given our experience in the legal and regulatory space, we thought, um, this is an important set of problems to apply this technology to, and it's given the amount of text and writing that is involved in these problem areas, it seemed like a really great application area. So
Mhm.
we started Paxton AI mid 2023, and uh, have been busy building it ever since.
Awesome. And you guys, I believe, raised $6 million round at some point last year. Would love to learn a little bit more about kind of what stage you're at right now, both kind of from a startup funding perspective as well as product perspective.
Yeah, so we closed our seed round back in September last year, so a few months ago, and have used that to expand out the team. So we're mostly a technical team at this stage of the company, but we have some talented engineers and folks helping to build out the platform. And what we're really focused on is kind of the core work of attorneys and lawyers and legal professionals. Uh, both drafting documents, whether they're court filings or contracts, as well as conducting legal research. And these kind of two tasks can take up a tremendous amount of time for attorneys, and can be quite manual and um, frankly tedious in a lot of cases. So uh, we find that folks that have adopted the Paxton platform for use in their day-to-day legal work, they are a lot more efficient. They can produce more output, and it takes some of those pain points out of their day, so they enjoy their work a lot more than before generative AI kind of came to the fore. Um, So at this stage, we have a few thousand attorneys on the Paxton platform. We're iterating and building rapidly, and we try to be very customer centric and feedback focused here at Paxton. If folks follow us or try out the platform, they'll notice a lot of changes in these early days. And if you have suggestions or feedback for ways we could improve the platform and make it better for folks in this line of work, we take that very seriously and incorporate it pretty quickly.
Awesome. Yeah. So I've had conversations with a few of my more forward-thinking friends in the legal profession about implications, kind of their hypothesis about how this technology will impact their profession, as well as just more broadly the way that law touches different aspects of society. And it seems like one of the strong sentiments that I've heard is that there's kind of there's two sets of companies and kind of product segments. One that lowers the kind of the barrier to entry of consumers, or like end users, customers getting legal services. Maybe they're not going to get what they, the same quality level that they would have gotten from paying a high powered law firm, but they may not have even sought help from a lawyer in the past because it was too expensive. And so there's that half. And then there's the other half, which is going in and making the work of lawyers and law firms more efficient and more enjoyable. And so being more of a B2B business and product set. And so it seems like that's more where you're focused, is that your customers are lawyers and firms and people dealing with legal documents already, rather than some consumer who needs to write a will and wants to do it with a chatbot.
Yeah, absolutely. But I mean, it's just a really exciting time to be in this space, or working with generative AI more broadly. You know, I really view this as the next platform shift. Akin to the introduction of the computer, the introduction of the internet, the introduction of mobile or cloud. We seem to get one of these platform shifts like once every 10 years or so. And I think there's going to be opportunities in kind of both segments. In prior platforms or eras, we had things like LegalZoom and Rocket Lawyer, which kind of serve the use case, your first use case of broadening access to legal services to folks who might not have been able to afford or access them. And then, you know, enabling and empowering practitioners, I think, is where we at Paxton are playing and are serving our clients. Um, and I think there's a tremendous amount of value to be added across the spectrum of kind of firm sizes and operating models in this space. You have everything from the big law firms who do multiple billions in revenue to smaller solo practitioners or folks with only a few attorneys. And I think in both cases you'll see generative AI provide them a lot of leverage. So you might see smaller firms, more nimble firms now being able to compete for some of that business that was kind of strictly the providence of big law with their armies of associates.
Mhm.
You might have a mid-sized firm or a sole practitioner who can now serve those bigger clients in a way they couldn't before. And I think we'll see some exciting developments in this space in terms of rethinking business models, rethinking methods of client service, because we now have these tools.
So you mentioned that your team is primarily, a technical or product and engineering organization right now, but you also have several thousand lawyers who are on the platform, which to me means that they're finding you. They're seeking you out. You don't have a big sales force that's going and selling to these folks. So, are there any trends of the types of practitioners or firms that are finding you guys, and maybe it's based on the specific set of problems that you're solving, or maybe it's based on the particular type of lawyer that is seeking an advantage. But I'd be really curious because I feel like that tells us a little bit about how you are positioned in this market that clearly has had a lot of activity, and there's a lot of big funding announcements in the legal AI space.
Yeah, absolutely. It's pretty different than the last time I went through this with SDAI, kind of the previous generation of AI. It was kind of a slog to convince people to pay attention to this. It was like people didn't know what it was, and we really had to spend a lot of time articulating uh, how this could provide value to folks in the insurance industry. And that sort of barrier is in some ways a lot easier today because everyone can just go try ChatGPT or Bard or folks can go to Paxton AI and just try Paxton, and you can really feel it and see in a really visceral sense what the capabilities of these models are. So it seems like every law firm these days is trying to figure out what their generative AI strategy is going to be, and so we don't have to overcome that kind of hump of is this thing important? Um, Nowadays, there's a lot more noise. There's so many vendors out there, and it can be tough to kind of stick out from the pack. But it's a new set of challenges this time around.
Mm-hmm.
So I think AI is going to impact every type of lawyer because writing, drafting documents, understanding research. These kind of tasks are core to the work of attorneys. Um, uh, so we tend to get more of the early adopter or innovative types on the platform. If you uh, like with any new technology, there's certainly an adoption curve where uh, more innovative types will adopt first, and this tends to be a smaller portion of the market before your general mass adoption. Um, and legal can be kind of a conservative industry, as opposed to some other ones that I've worked in. Um, but I think given the excitement around OpenAI and ChatGPT and just the ability for folks to try this stuff out, we've just seen a tremendous amount of enthusiasm on this front.
Hmm. And in terms of the thing that you see differentiating Paxton um, now, but also into the future, is this is it data? Is it is it custom models that you've trained? Is it the user experience? Is it the application layer and just the way that people interact? Um, I'm curious to understand from your perspective what helps you build moats in this space, because I've heard a number of people who are either interested or already building in this space. They have different feelings there, but certainly probably a bit of everything. Um, but obviously the dynamic of the market is such that there's this strong pull from customers for solutions. So it's not going to necessarily be that you have the best sales team, but people are going to go test out a bunch of these different tools and then ultimately make decisions based on what's solving their problems.
Yeah, I think it's a bit of the all the above. You know, I tend I tend to view moats more as something you build incrementally over time just by delivering a really great customer experience and really delivering value to the end user and iterating on feedback quickly. So you incrementally get better, and that growth kind of compounds over time until it's hard for other folks in the space to catch up.
Hmm.
And I think with Paxton, we're AI from the get go. We're AI from the ground up, and we're really taking great care to make sure the UI and interface for our customers is top notch, and we're really understanding the workflow of an attorney and incorporating that into how you actually use the software. Um, and I think, if you kind of remember back to, what the mobile internet first looked like, I think a lot of incumbent players were just, it's like put the desktop web up on the phone, and that's it. And it wasn't a very great experience, um, versus some of the apps that came out after that were more designed from the ground up, whether it was Uber or Instacart, where it was really designed for this new platform, and ended up with like a much better customer experience. So we here at Paxton, we're also building our own LLMs, our own models. It's something that I did at my time at Zesty AI. We took computer vision models and adapted them to the insurance use case to understand the risk of catastrophic events that uh, uh, risk that catastrophes pose to individual properties, and understanding them from satellite and aerial imagery in an automated way. A lot of the techniques and tools are pretty similar across language modeling and image modeling. So we take open source models here and we adapt them to the legal vertical, the legal use case, and opposed to more of the general purpose models. These ones are very good at what they're trained for, this specific vertical. They're not going to be generating code. They're not writing poetry, but they're very good at this one specific use case, and that's something that we can nail versus trying to do everything at once. So
Hmm.
really focused on the customer experience, and then building out our own proprietary models, and continuing to iterate and uh, develop them and compound on those efforts. I think that's where our moat comes from.
Got it. And how is it priced? If I'm a small firm and I want to start using Paxton, what am I looking at from a kind of cost center perspective?
Yeah. So you can go to Paxton.ai and try out Paxton for free. I'm not sure when this will come out, but very shortly we're activating our paid plans, which will be $99 per month per user. So we want to make sure that this is accessible for attorneys and all types of firms. And that's kind of gets you access to our self-serve platform. But if you need access to our models directly, or you need something more custom, or you need security settings, or access controls, or more stuff that's geared towards the enterprise, that would be more of a negotiated sale directly with larger customers. But uh, we kind of took this view that we want to make this tech accessible to firms of all sizes. So we're going with both a self-serve option as well as this negotiated option.
Got it. And the reason I ask is because from my perspective, I sit here more as a customer of lawyers rather than a lawyer myself, and so I'm trying to think about if it sounds like this is basically less than the cost of one billable hour for a typical lawyer, sometimes maybe significantly less. And the idea, my assumption would be that this is making each one of those users more productive, that their output is potentially significantly more than it was before because they can ingest a massive trove of documents and get the particular information that they need very quickly. And so maybe we can segue a little bit into just the implications more broadly from Paxton, et cetera. Like, it doesn't necessarily, you don't have to bear the entire weight on your shoulders of how AI, seeds into the legal professions. But, um, what does this mean for the business of lawyers and law firms from your perspective, and how does that impact customers of those firms, just in terms of the costs that we're looking at for the services that we're seeking?
Yeah, no, great question. And I'll caveat it by saying the future is notoriously hard to predict. But
Sure.
uh, you know, I think we're in for a big transformation of this industry. There and it's not like the industry hasn't gone through these transformations before. It's probably hard to remember, but there was a time before every lawyer had a computer on their desk, and uh, that that must have been kind of a similar calculus to folks thinking about adopting AI today. Uh, the computers back then were a lot more expensive, probably several $1,000s per person, and they're a lot less capable than they were today. And so firms had to make that calculus before, and you probably can't imagine a law firm without computers today. You would probably be if you're going to start a law firm like that, you'd probably be laughed out of the room. So it's harder to kind of imagine sitting here what that's going to look like. But I think that sort of decision making and that sort of adoption is what we're going to see by law firms with AI. Something we wouldn't consider operating a firm today without computers, without phones, but these were technologies someone had to make a decision to adopt back when they were a lot less capable uh, 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 than they are today.
Yeah.
Um, in terms of business models and implications for the industry, the billable hour is still kind of the uh, main way law firms price and build those services. And I think firms are going to have to figure out new ways of collaborating and charging their clients. we're seeing a lot of experimentation with subscription models, with flat fee arrangements, and I think you'll see an increasing portion of legal work delivered in that manner. Um, there's certain reasons that the billable hour will be. Um, I think it makes sense in certain client situations where you're dealing with a lot of ambiguity and it may make sense for certain projects, but I think a lot more projects that are more standardized will migrate off of this uh, billing framework to something else.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, when I sit here and I think about if I'm someone buying widgets, right? And I pay $1 per widget, and the person I buy that widget from becomes 10 times more productive. It's kind of like, I don't see that. I still pay $1 per widget, and they make a much larger margin on that widget they sell me, and maybe eventually the market competes down to a lower price of that widget. But it seems like the billable hour, it particularly exposes the legal profession to this kind of conflict between increase productivity and the revenues that they're trying to charge, to get from their customer segments. And to me, that screams kind of disruption opportunity. Like, the law firm that really wants to keep billing those same numbers of hours, they won't be able to compete to the firm that's maybe an upstart or someone who just is willing to kind of transform and say, hey, we're going to do that same thing for a much lower price, because we're now much more productive. And so it forces these new types of pricing models, or ways that you think, like, maybe certain legal services become a little bit more like that widget, where the work is actually a bit obscured, and the profession can take advantage of the productivity gains from adopting new tools and techniques internally.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think what's interesting about this moment in time is that everyone everyone saw this AI thing happen at the same time, and um, for the large purchasers of legal services, or even someone like you or me who is hiring attorneys, you're watching this AI transformation happen, and uh, firms are getting pressure from their clients to adopt these tools, and make changes to the way they're billing. Um, you know, uh, your their clients are seeing this great transformation, and they're if you're going to keep charging them the same amount of money, or delivering services in the same way that you used to, they're going to wonder, okay, I'm just going to go down the street to someone else who's uh, also adopting these tools and going to meet my needs better. So
Mhm.
I think there will be that pressure, and I think a lot of firms have cost structures that will need to be re-examined in the light of the productivity gains that AI offers. Um, and I think, like I was saying earlier, smaller firms, mid-sized firms will probably start moving up market because of this point of leverage that allows them to compete for larger contracts, larger clients and books of business.
Yeah, I mean, I think the ability for a smaller firm to compete up market, certainly there, but it also feels like this other category of legal and AI technology, which is the kind of lowering the barrier to entry and serving the long tail, is very much a factor here. It may not be where you guys are as focused right now, but um, there are plenty of uh, law related needs that consumers have, that they may not have been willing to pay a few $100s an hour to have served, that now could be far less expensive, maybe fully automated, or maybe it's a small amount of effort from a lawyer to serve those needs. And I wonder if some of the brands that have been built in the previous era of the legal profession end up being used to push down market and say, hey, we're, Perkins Coie, you've heard our name in a million podcasts, and now you can come and get your will done with a few clicks of a button or something. Like it'll be interesting to see if the people at the top of the market end up playing more down market because they actually can do so in a really efficient way.
Yeah, I think we'll totally, and you're already seeing some of that today with I think Cooley has a program for startups where a lot of template documents are just available for free or for low cost. So those kind of repeatable, uh, those repeatable tasks where there's probably not that much difference from client to client. I think those sorts of things are ripe for what you just described.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and you think about what happens when you expand capacity and you lower the price of something, you get a lot more of it. So I think there are a lot of cases where say a lawsuit or a disagreement involves less than a few $1,000s or a few $100,000. Like today, law firms probably don't take those cases on. But if you lower the cost of serving those types of clients, I think you make legal services a lot more accessible to a broader audience.
Yeah. So the overall spend on legal services may actually increase, but the way that it's broken down will be dramatically different in 10 years, it seems like. Um,
Yeah, I mean, you
maybe,
could you could imagine something like Jarvis from Iron Man or like I don't know if you've seen the movie Her,
yeah.
where they had the AI in your ear, but your automated assistant, automated attorney, just going about and taking care of your legal needs, your legal requirements, your paperwork, and you don't even realize that it's happening for you. You just get back to doing your work, conducting your business, and that's all just kind of happening in the background.
Hopefully we don't all, go around with some kind of Google Glass device that just points out potential lawsuit opportunities and everyone's like suing the heck out of each other, even
Yeah,
more so than today in our litigious society. Um,
yeah, but you might not even realize that the lawsuit happened or it was resolved. It's you just your AI took care of it for you.
yeah, it's like, you know, there's a crack in the street next to your neighbor's house and your AI goes and sues their AI and the court case happens without you even knowing, and you get $10 and the crack is fixed. And, who knows? The future will be certainly very interesting.
Yeah,
Well, I guess
absolutely.
just to like cap us off here, if I'm a young person looking, contemplating going to law school, maybe I just entered the legal profession, maybe I am the owner of a smaller firm, upstart firm. What is the advice that you would give me as I'm like, entering this profession now, just based on your perspective, building this company, building Zesty in the past, and having obviously a lot of knowledge about artificial intelligence and foresight into this space.
Uh, yeah, I think we're on the cusp of a really dramatic change, and I would encourage folks to go learn about AI, to go try out some of the tools, including Paxton, including ChatGPT, and really try to solve a problem with it, learn how it works, because this is going to be really core to the work of, I think, most knowledge professionals in the future. Um, you know, you could you can imagine back to other technological transitions. Like, do you really want to be the attorney or the law student who was the last person to adopt a computer? Um, and kind of be stuck in those days of when we had armies of typists, or would you rather kind of be ahead of that shift, ahead of that change? I know certainly where I'd like to be, but I think it's only going to behoove you to understand this stuff and try to apply it in your work.
Cool. Well, I completely agree with that sentiment. So Thanks a lot for joining us here on this mid interview series, Mike, and we look forward to seeing more from Paxton AI.
Great. Well, thanks, Grant. Appreciate you having me on, and thanks for the chat.
Take care. Bye.
Bye.